I don't live a celebrity life, and neither does anybody in the Hasidic community that we could, label with the label of celebrity. Celebrity just means that I do a certain work that everybody knows me for that. It's not like the guy that lives in Beverly Hills and he's surrounded by his type of people and he goes to a restaurant with his type of people. The thing that I do for a living is a very public, I could almost say public service. And people enjoy it. So automatically people feel like, they want to comment and they want to say something.
Hello and welcome or welcome back. My name is Frida Weisel, and here I cover topics related to Judaism, New York City, and very often Hasidic Judaism, which fascinates me greatly as it's the world that I come from. As an ex-Hasidic woman, I've explored many facets of the society here on this channel, always hopefully in a humanizing way. Today, I'm really excited to have on for a guest, 20-year veteran of the Hasidic Yiddish entertainment scene, the actor, comedian, director, and multi-talented Ari Abromowitz. You might not have fathomed this, but there's a whole fascinating world of Hasidic entertainment that's just about bursting with energy and talent. I actually have a collection on my channel of Hasidic Yiddish ads, which I translate so it can reach a wider English-speaking audience. And oftentimes you'll see Ari as the comic relief character or acting in these advertisements. I was beyond excited when he reached out. To be honest, after 4 years of doing this work on this channel, he was the first male celebrity to propose an interview. And I'm so excited to share a bit of behind the scenes of this very special subculture with you all today. So thank you, Ari, and hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How's it going? First of all, mazel tov on your new baby. Can I say that for everyone?
Thank you. Yes, sure.
Wonderful.
Very
So
exciting.
very exciting. Yes. Can we say it's baby number 8?
It's baby number 8. Yes, Baruch Hashem, thank God, is baby number 8. Now, I don't know when this is going to air, but the baby is now, I would say, almost 2 weeks old, a little bit of more than a week. Yeah, we just had the Wachtnacht and the bris. We named the baby Shimon, which is very special for me. Because of my connection to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, who is one of the previous sages, for those who don't know the history behind it. And yeah, it's very exciting.
Lovely. Does it get easier with baby to baby to baby?
I think that the big change is probably from 2 to 3,
Hmm.
because that's when it becomes like more of a family, and it's not anymore, when you want to go out, it's not just let's run out, get a babysitter. It becomes already a whole thing. But by now, my oldest one is almost 18 already, so we're really having our hands full. It's really a full family, Baruch Hashem, and we're very grateful. And it becomes more beautiful with every baby.
Do you drive a giant 15-passenger van?
No, I actually drive a small car. My wife drives a minivan, and when we have to go somewhere, everybody together, we usually go with both cars.
I see. Okay. So maybe how about maybe tell me before we talk about the entertainment scene, which fascinates me. I would love to hear your own story. Where are you from? Who's Ari Abramowitz?
So, who's Ari Abromowitz? My story is fascinating and not fascinating at the same time, meaning it is very fascinating for me because I really enjoyed my upbringing and I really enjoyed my life from whenever I can remember myself. I was actually born in Israel. We moved to the United States when I was approximately 4 years old. So I basically grew up here, learned the language here, learned how to speak really and communicate here. So my first language is Yiddish, not Hebrew, even though
Hmm.
at home we do speak Hebrew. So I do have a pretty decent Hebrew, but it is more like a second language. English I picked up later in time as the more I used it, obviously the better it became. I grew up in Williamsburg till around either 13 or 14. I think it was like somewhere around that time that we moved over to Bar Park. My parents were always very supportive and backing me with everything that I did, whether when I was a little kid and in yeshiva and learning or whatever it is, and later on in life when I took my different ventures, whether it was in acting, teaching, writing, whatever I did, they were always backing me. They're probably my biggest fan still today. So that's basically who I am. I got married when I was about 22 years old.
That's a little old, no?
Yes and no, meaning I was not considered old, I think, among my friends. So I got married. I lived first in Bar Park for quite a while, and for the past 10 years we've lived in Pomona, which is next to Muncie, New York. I was always fascinated by entertainment. I don't know why, but I always loved it, and I always had an opinion. I used to always gather my friends in the neighborhood and then make different shows, and I have a neighbor that whenever he meets me, he's like, yeah, you kept me up every Shabbos afternoon, you didn't let me nap. You owe me part of your legacy, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, that was my upbringing.
What kind of entertainment did you grow up with in Williamsburg and then in Borough Park?
It's basically the same thing. For me, Williamsburg and Borough Park wasn't that big of a difference because my family, we were very welcoming and very understanding. By my parents, there was never such thing as talking negative about anybody else. My mother would literally have heart attacks if we started talking negative about anybody. It makes no difference there who it is, what it is.
Got it. I just want to interject and explain what our discussion here is really about. Borough Park is considered more modern than Williamsburg. So kind of going from Williamsburg to Borough Park, it built into my question is the assumption that you went to a more liberal place. And you're saying you grew up essentially liberal anyway. In Williamsburg, even there was an openness.
For me growing up, it was never like, nobody was a stigma. Nobody was different. We were all beautiful, amazing people, and any rabbi, any leader was always extremely respected by my parents, no matter which sect and which part of Judaism. So I grew up. There was the cassettes that we used to listen to, which were either of previous shows that were made.
Plays by men, right?
There are some very famous names out there. The Letzte Gedanke is like, if you ever heard of The Letzte Gedanke, I'm sure you grew up on that.
Remind me.
The Letzte Gedanke was with Zamel, the famous comedian.
The one with slash, zoom around the garbage.
There you go.
Oh, well, nothing. I just want to check the information here. Is your name Esther Stinkowitz?
Das getauschte Nummer?
No. Your name Esther Stinkowitz?
This is my wife's name.
Oh, it's his wife.
So he's traveling with his wife's passport? Can't do that. It's against the law.
Zoek ze daar vibes. Die komt met de vibes.
Ja, zit eens met de borg. Ze is vorige morgen gekomen door met mannen.
He said good. He said that she used his the last time, so now he used hers.
Where's Bill?
So that was, I think that play was something like 50 years ago or something like that. I don't know the exact number. I mean, way before my times. But the cassettes we would still listen to. And then whatever were the plays at that time. And in addition, there were also certain albums that came out at the time that were, I think it was like stories acted out, but like just in the studio type of thing. So I always loved that as well. And then there were, in my days, and it's still going on, what they call the Bobova plays, which is the Bobov sect of Hasidim. They do a play to raise money for what is called Keren Chasana, which is basically helping people in need when it comes time to marry off their children. So to raise money for that, they do a play twice a year. Which is usually a very low budget play, and it's really meant for like kids, you know, just to go and enjoy themselves. So I grew up with those plays as well. Then I felt like the luckiest man alive when my father agreed to take us to a play called Aslich Sacht in Kiev, which is till today considered the play that kind of changed, I could say, the perspective on Yiddish plays in the community. And when my father agreed to take us to that play, it was phenomenal. It was like a dream come true. I remember I was sitting there just like eating up the stage. I was enjoying every second of it. And I was a little kid at the time. I was probably, I don't know, 8, 9. I don't remember which year it was, but I was just fascinated by the ideas and the makeup and the costumes and the actors. And I remember I asked, so where did they go when they're not on stage? What happens there? I was just like, it was, for me, this was like, you know, entering my world. And from there on, I kind of constantly followed the plays that were always there were always plays in the community, usually on Chol Hamoed, which is either on Pesach or on Sukkot. So I always went to the place, and this is what I grew up with. And then came camp, and that was like a whole new world of entertainment, because in camp, I remember I was looking forward because the councils are doing the big play by the end of the summer. So I was always looking forward for that. So yeah, I always grew up with entertainment, and I always loved it.
The plays that you're referring to, they only happen like twice a year, right? During the holiday Passover and during the holiday Sukkot, and there's like a workup for like months. Everyone is getting ready for it.
Yes. So I'm right now, as we speak, I'm working on a play that is going to happen on Passover, and at the same
And we're
time,
talking now in February, and it's for April, right?
yeah. So it's in about 2 months from now, or give or take. And then I'm already working. We're already almost done writing the play for Sukkot, which is, I believe,
October.
October, something like that. So so it's always months in advance. It's usually right now I'm working on two, because I'm working for two different companies that are doing plays, but there are three main companies that do the plays these days, and each one does it about every year and a half or something like that, like give or take, because we give each other the opportunity. So right now I'm actually working on two. I'm working on a third one also, which someone is putting together for the day after Purim. Purim is on a Friday, and that the play is going to be on Sunday. So we're working on that as well. So right now is very interesting, because I barely have that I'm working at once on three huge productions at the same time. But
Wow.
yeah, it takes a lot of work.
Can I come to the Shushan Purim play that you just mentioned to see it?
So most of these plays is boys only, men only. Especially the Shushan Purim one is really going to be probably, as far as I'm understanding, for a younger age. But however, on Shushan Purim night, I do a production in Munkach by the Tish of the Rebbe, which is a beautiful Tish all around, and it ends with a play that we do. And for that, you're for sure more than welcome. That the lady section is open, and you can come and watch. And
So where are the performances usually? What kind of auditoriums, and how big is the audience?
so it depends. I think the biggest audience that we have is when we do, I believe, in NJ which is in New Jersey. It has, I believe, approximately 3,000 seats or something like that, and we usually do 4 shows. However, we have done in smaller auditoriums. Like, for instance, the last big show that I did was with a new company, so he did it in a different auditorium. So we had in total, over the 4 shows, we had approximately, I think, like 7,000 or 8,000 people that came to watch.
Does it make money?
Let's put it this way: it's for someone to invest in it. It's really a hobby more than a business, because even if you do make money, you put in so much work and so much time, and how much money do you make back already that it should be worth it? I always tell people, imagine if I tell you, put in $1 million into a business, work for a year, and your profit by the end will be $10,000.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we're doing almost. Now, I myself, I'm not the producer and the investor. I'm on the other end. So for me, it's part of my yearly budget. It's part of budgeting my year. I know, okay, there's going to be a show, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, and it all goes into the calculation of the budget of the year.
Back to your childhood entertainment. I just want viewers who don't have a frame of reference of how revolutionary the entertainment scene is to understand that you grew up, like, you didn't grow up with movies, right? And you didn't grow up with, or did you grow up with Uncle Moishi, for instance?
So my family was very liberal in that aspect. So I wasn't completely sheltered, but for the audience to understand, the average kid, at least in my days, today it's a little bit different, did not get to watch barely anything. Very few that would watch things from the outside world, but even things that were, like you mentioned, Uncle Moishi, who gave out, his videos which were meant for kids. Most of the kids that I grew up with did not watch that and had no access to that. And their entertainment was mainly listening to cassettes, some of music and some of what I mentioned before, of previous plays. And then there were those that were lucky enough to go to shows twice a year. There were very few that got to rewatch a play.
On
Meaning you
DVD.
had to, yeah, this is pre-DVD days. This is we're talking about VHS days.
Yes.
Now, it meant that most of them did not have a machine at home, right? So it meant, there were certain places that rented a screen with a VCR, and you had to buy or rent the cassette and get it to your house hidden in a garbage bag or whichever way you got
Oh,
it.
you're bringing back memories.
And those were big machines, we're not talking about these little screens that we have today. So for most kids, it wasn't even an option. They did not grow up, and their entertainment was clearly that. But don't forget, we also grew up in a time where we entertained ourselves. And in a sense, I'm very grateful for that. Entertainment meant that I got home and I went out to play with my friends. I did not sit in front of a screen.
Yeah.
So
Is it the same for your kids today?
in a certain sense, yes and no, because my kids do have access to watch certain things, yet controlled. So we're talking about a laptop that they put in a DVD that is already half scratched, and they rewatch and rewatch it. And then my son would also sit for hours and watch the camp videos, the plays that they did in camp and comedy skits that we did in camp. So all these things they put together on like a USB thingy. It's probably, I don't know, like 3 hours of footage, maybe even more. So my kids could sit with that for hours as well. So it's not like they come home and they plop down on the couch and take the remote and start scrolling channels.
So the entertainment that both you had and their children have is I'm assuming men only performing.
Not necessarily, because today's days there are a lot of plays for girls. They even have movies now for women. So obviously my son that is 18 years old is not going to sit down and watch it, just also because he's not interested in that. Like he would look at it like, girly and foolish and whatever. Like it's not something that would even like
Resonate for him.
it's not something that I have to tell him that it's not for him. Like it's not even like up his alley. But my daughters will sit and watch those plays over and over and over again. So there's really no mix entertainment, because the plays and the movies that are done in the kosher world mostly, as far as I know, do not have men and women on it. And then you have different shows. You have there's a show now, I just hear it in the background, Dr. Schnitzel, that like has like a whole science show for kids. It's like one of these like kids shows with a bunch of science things that he tries out. So I know my kids are very into that, and because I always hear them arguing over which one to put on.
Yeah.
So I know that it exists. So there is today's days a lot more entertainment than it was when I was growing up, 100%. And not only that, entertainment got to a whole new level.
It's funny because I feel like people who are coming of age now have missed our generation where we saw the shift happen,
Right.
where we saw how things just went from almost no entertainment world. I don't know how this bubble once a year that you listened to 1 million times, you knew it by heart, to this whole explosion that is extremely ambitious, creative, energetic, and a lot of the things that I've been collecting because I found it so interesting, you're in them. So my question back to you and your own personal journey is, when did you start to be an actor? What happened? I didn't even know there was such a thing as an actor as a child.
Yeah, so I really don't know what pulled me first. As I said before, like I did have like on the block or whatever, we would do like Shabbos afternoon, we would do like plays in a certain sense. The first time I actually went on a stage, it was very interesting. I was in camp my first year. I would say maybe 9 or 10 years old, something like that. It was my first year, so everything that happened in camp was something new that I just found out. So there was color war in camp, where camp gets divided into 2 teams. All types of races and things, very interesting. Now, I had no idea what else is involved in color war. So one of the counselors came over to me and he tells me, by break time or whatever it is, meet me there and there. Now, I had no idea what's going on. I thought for sure I'm in trouble. I probably did something wrong, and I was trying to like think through my day, like what could I have possibly done. When I get there, I meet there, another few kids, like I don't know, 5, 6 boys that were standing there, and they're all looking at me like, "Oh, you're also being in the play?" I'm like, "Hold on, what?" So that's when I found out that part of Color is that we're putting up a play, and for some reason, that specific counselor in camp just like, I guess, saw me and saw the way that I'm conducting myself and just figured I want to put him on stage. And that was really the first time that I got to go on stage, like for real.
What was your role?
I was actually, if I remember correctly, I was actually acting a groom in the day of his wedding, and the person that is some rich person that's paying for the wedding, because the groom didn't, the families didn't have any money, so some rich person paid for the wedding and he didn't show up. And that's when they knew to go looking for him, and they went looking for him, and they found him somewhere in the woods, whatever, where some bad people caught him and they wanted to kill him or whatever it is, and he got saved. Some kind of a story to that effect, if I remember correctly. This is bringing back a lot of memories. So
because in merit of his charity,
yes,
this rich person's charity, he was
was
saved from the bandits in the woods.
so something to that effect, if I remember correctly. But I think it was something intertwined with Hanukkah as well. I don't even know. It was such a long time ago. But when you ask me now, it's kind of like bringing back some kind of a memory. So that was actually my first time really on stage, and it was interesting because having to act like a groom was very interesting for me because my sister got married not long before, and my brother-in-law by the wedding was probably the only groom that I got to see what a groom acts like during a wedding. So I was kind of copying what I saw him doing, and they loved it. And since then I became the kid in camp that was always pulled on stage whenever they needed someone to play a role. And that just like boosted up my whole idea of acting and that whole concept.
Did you think this could be a career? Because it wasn't a concept of a career when I was
It
a
wasn't a
kid.
concept of a career, I would say, till 10 years ago, maybe. Meaning I did it and I made some money off of it and it was nice, but I never looked at it as this is something that I might be doing almost like it might become a career. And I
Yeah.
would say about 10 years ago is when it turned to like, okay, this might actually be something.
It's funny. I remember that when I heard that people play sports for a career, I was so confused. I was like, how does anyone make money when you play with the ball? Like, where does the buying and selling happen in the arts? It takes a while to realize there's a lot of other ways to make money nowadays, even in the Hasidic world, advertisement through your
Right,
exposure.
there's video exposure, there's advertising, then there are the shows, and we do have recordings I have recordings of Kamavase. I write for different magazines that I write for, which is technically all in the same entertainment industry in a way. And then I am a storyteller, so I go around telling stories. We have a beautiful thing called Avasabanim. Avasabanim, the literally translates into fathers and children, which is on every Saturday night in almost every synagogue in the tri-state area and probably worldwide by now. There is a program for fathers to come learn with their children, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. They sit there, they go over there, whatever they learned in school that week. Some bring along their homework and they do it over there with their parents. Some just, do their own thing. Some do like a special thing that they learn, every week. And it's beautiful. It's one of the most amazing things probably that was discovered within the community. And today's days, literally every single synagogue has some kind of a program, and then they raffle out prizes, and certain places give pizza for the kids or some danishes or whatever it is that they give them some kind of snack or food or whatever it is. And then usually there's also story time. In the synagogue where I go to, the congregation that I belong to, I officially am the one running this program, which means that I give a story there every week.
Are Hasidic audiences fantastic audiences because they're so not like tired and accustomed to all the stories, so they're like so hungry for entertainment?
Yes and no, meaning we have set the bar very, very high these days. Meaning boys will expect the counselors in camp to put up a production similar to the ones that they see on, during the year. And it's almost impossible. So the bar is set very, very high. And when something, comes out and it's not that, fine, whether it's in the story or the acting or the production or whatever it is, you will hear feedback about it. However, I did see that while the show is going on, people are here to be entertained. They're here to have a good time. They're not here to criticize you. Now, if it's very obvious that the show is just, not interesting, that's one thing. But in general, if the show is okay, if people are entertained, they just want to be entertained. The question is what kind of feedback you'll get afterwards. And since the bar is set so high, we really have to make sure that we always reach it and beyond.
At which point did you become a celebrity? And what does it mean to be a Hasidic celebrity? I'm sorry that I use the term, but I'm using it very loosely.
It's okay. Yeah. At which point did I become a celebrity? I'm not sure. It's just a fact of life, really. It's a fact of life that wherever I'm going, people know me and people stop me and people give comments. There are definitely people that do not know me and possibly people that never heard of me. I mean, the community is huge. However, anybody that's tuned into entertainment knows me from somewhere because they have watched some of the things that I'm involved in and they've listened to some of the recordings that I was involved in. So I constantly get stopped, and it's not just here in tri-state area. If I'm in Israel, I get stopped over there. From the most conservative to the most liberal, from every side of the spectrum, and not just Yiddish speaking. It's fascinating how it's worldwide, so I have to be very aware of that. I don't want to give the wrong image to people, especially to children. So if I'm in the synagogue and they're in the middle of davening, in the middle of praying, and I want to tell my friend something that sits next to me, I actually have to think more than just the fact of I don't want to speak during prayers, but also the fact of there's a child sitting right across of me. And in a sense, it's weird for me to say these words, but for conversation's sake, I don't know if he looks up to me, but at least in a certain sense, he sees me as some kind of a figure. And I don't want him to see that figure as someone that does things that are not proper and that are not right. So I in a sense, I have to keep that in mind. Most adults that come over to me, and I'm not talking within my circle people that I talk to every day, a guy that I just met for the first time, and he comes over to me and says, I'm sure you hear a million times, but I'm also going to say it, I watch your things or whatever it is. And I always tell them, no, I would love to hear 1,000,001. Thank you so much for And I mean it. It is nice to hear back feedback, but it's a fact of life. It's a fact of life that when I walk in the streets of Bar Park and there's a bus passing by with kids, I will hear my name yelled out of the bus.
It's very different than being a celebrity in the wider world, right?
Right, because I don't live among celebrities. It's not like the guy that lives in Beverly Hills and he's surrounded by his type of people and he goes to a restaurant with his type of people.
Yeah.
I don't live a celebrity life, and neither does anybody in the Hasidic community that we could, label with the label of celebrity. Celebrity just means that I do a certain work that everybody knows me for that.
Yeah.
The guy that works in the grocery, the people that work in the grocery know him. So they would compliment him on putting out the shelves so beautifully and making sure that everything is stacked up. The thing that I do for a living is a very public, I could almost say public service. And people enjoy it. So automatically people feel like, they want to comment and they want to say something.
I was once giving a tour in Williamsburg and I was walking and this guy says, "Are you the tour guide?" And then I look at him and I think, "Oh, this is Barry Weber." So I said, "Are you the singer?" But he looked like an ordinary person walking in Williamsburg with his talis with it going to pray. And he just asked me if I'm the tour guide. But it's like in the Hasidic community, everyone is in the pot together.
Right.
And there is no anonymity. Once you're a public figure, you get a lot of spotlight.
Yes, yes, you get a lot of spotlight, and the community gives you a chance also. If someone comes out and he says, I want to sing, and I want to become a singer. If he has one wedding and he's sings one wedding and he's pretty decent, or he gives out a single and he's pretty decent, chances are he will get picked up. It's a lot easier in the world of talent, especially within the community. If a guy writes an article and it's good, he's not gonna have a hard time getting it published. If anybody wants to act, it's not that difficult to get an audition to one of the shows and one of the plays or one of the movies that we do. It's actually pretty easy. People always ask me, what does it take to become an actor? I said, it's a phone call. And then you'll come down and we'll give you an audition. And the audition is not going to be like a whole official audition. I spoke to someone recently that came once for an audition. He tells me, before I walked in, I was like really nervous because like I'm going in like among the lions. It's like, he says, I walked into the room. He mentioned all the names that were sitting there. I was there as well. It was by the last show that we did. And he's like, first I was like, okay, take a deep breath. And then he says, once I just started speaking, I started realizing, no, we're all here for the same reason. We want to entertain. So either I'm going to get the part or I'm not going to get the part.
It's very nice. I hear that. I get that. So to wrap up a little bit about plays, I'm going to play a little bit so we get a sense of how these plays look.
Mr. Callahan.
Callahan?
Mr. Callahan. Ich habe das Angst. Aber das ist sich will her.
Ja, was meinst du? Jetzt treffen wir allein das Tier.
Hativat!
Kim.
Safe!
What we see from the viewer's end of plays is a male-only cast. Are there none Hasidim, and are there women involved behind the scenes that we don't know of?
Very few. I mean, women barely. I'm trying to think if there was any show that I was involved with. The only women that I would know that are involved in the shows are the women that are from the venue. Meaning they're not part of the production, they're part of the venue. So sometimes the venue would have a stage director or someone that either stagehands or whatever it is that they are providing. That could be women, and otherwise you barely. I don't remember any women being involved. Oh, there is one lady happens to be that she does costumes for certain shows. I don't know if she still does it. I'm not sure, but I remember that she used to do it for a while. So she was kind of involved behind the scenes. Non-Hasidim...
Wait, just a second. Before you go to non-Hasidim, do you read your lines to your wife, or are there men who involve their wives?
Yeah, there are many. I don't, because for me, I have a different way how I prepare for a show. But there are many guys that actually sit with their wives and read the lines and they come back. My wife said maybe to do this way or that way or whatever it is. So yeah, I know that the women are involved very much, and there are certain shows that if we can work out, let's say like a certain section or whatever it is for the wives and the daughters of the actors to come, so we sometimes try to work that out. There are very few times that the women are actually in the audience, and if yes, it's only like if it could really be worked out, like they're in the lighting room or whatever, Also, it would make most guys uncomfortable to have women around, especially in the dressing rooms, and then you take off a shirt and you have to run to the other room because your costume is over here and your mic is over there, and it's like you run out and there's a woman standing there. It's like almost like she's in my locker room, especially talking about Hasidic guys that certain modesty in a certain way. So it would just create an uncomfortable situation. But we had by one show we had in one of the rooms backstage, there was a Hasidic lady from Kiryas from Monroe, like a Spitzel lady, was sitting there with a sewing machine for anybody that needed, last minute touch ups on their costumes or whatever. So it was it was interesting that they found this lady that she just sat in that room. She had, I think she wasn't even by herself. I think she had maybe another woman with her. But yeah, anybody that, last minute things like there's a button fell off, or, I go on stage and I feel like my costume is loose somewhere, I got to fix it up. So we had that in the past as well.
Interesting. What about non-Jews? Are non-Jews involved? I'm guessing with the menu, obviously, or
With the
non-Hasidim.
venue, yes. With the venue for sure. Sometimes the lighting, the mic system could bring along. From our end, it's very tough because the shows are in Yiddish, so they have to
Yeah.
be able to follow. So it would be very difficult for them. So moving props and these things is one thing. So we have a mix. Like when it comes to moving props and putting things in place and help. So let's say makeup. There's one guy, Moshe Grunfeld, that he is the makeup artist. I mean, for many years, a good friend of mine. So he would bring along non-Jewish makeup artists as well, just to have a bigger team to be able to cover more faces at the same time. And since in the Jewish world there aren't many that do it, there's maybe not even a handful of men that do theatrical makeup, especially not to a real high standard. There are there are those that play around a little bit in camp or whatever, like small productions, but like for a big production you need real high end. So he usually brings along non-Jewish people as well. But otherwise in the production it would be very difficult.
Hasidic men all have beards. Is part of makeup to hide it sometimes?
Sometimes it's very difficult. Those that have their beards hidden usually automatically it creates a little bit of a fat face, so to speak, a double chin or whatever you want to call it, because like they have to prosthetics put it on. So it adds like a whole new character to the person. So we try to avoid it as much as possible, but when it's really needed, it's really needed. So we have done it in the past. I know I've done it on myself. They've done prosthetics more than once when it was needed, but I hate it. It's I mean the whole makeup situation is not an easy thing, but especially once it comes to prosthetics, you can sit on the chair for an hour and a half, 2 hours, for them
Yeah.
to just work on covering your beard and getting the color,
Wow.
shading, and everything.
Wow, interesting. That's so interesting. Is it hard to write stories without women, or it's natural to you?
For me, it's very natural.
Uh-huh.
Because it used to be that they used to always do it that let's say the mother passed away and now the kids are by themselves and they go through some kind of a thing, whatever they're going through, and the making it that the mother passed away helped them from two aspects. It helped them from the aspect that there's no mother, so there's no woman involved. There's a father but there's no mother, and it also added a certain feeling and emotion that the kid is grew up without a mother, and then it adds a
Yeah.
lot to the emotions.
It
They
adds
would
a lot of drama.
yeah, they would add scenes like going to the mother's graveside or something like that to kind of have.
Uh-huh.
When I started writing, one of the first things that I abolished was that. I can almost say that I pioneered in that, I think, to like just stop doing that. You don't want to involve a mother, just don't involve a mother. Just don't talk about it. She's in the other room. Whenever we see the stage, she's in the other room. Doesn't mean that she's not part of the story. She's not involved. We just don't talk about it. So for me, since when I started doing that, I think one of the first shows that I wrote was probably still had that. It was a camp play, but then I was like, no, I'm not doing that. We're not killing everyone. I'm just we're gonna let them live and let the kid have both parents and let them be nice, happy families, and they're going through whatever the story is whatever their venture is. I kind of see myself as pioneer in a lot of things, I would say, in the play industry, in Jewish entertainment industry. That being one of them, the idea that we're using full sets instead of sceneries. I don't know if you remember the plays back in the days used to be basically a scenery and they would bring in a table and a chair. I was the one that fought for, we should start actually building sets. Open up the stage, let there be a beautiful set. And I myself am kind of upset with myself right now for doing that because the play became more about the sets than about the act, but okay. So yeah.
What else?
When the intern started, I'm sure you heard of the intern.
Yeah, it's a series of very popular, more modern plays.
There are three popular companies that are doing shows these days. There are the intern plays that they call the interns. Intern actually means underneath. There are we call the epic production, which is one company that I work for, and then there is King's Yiddish Plays that just started recently that I also work with them. So the intern plays, I was involved in the first maybe 7, 8 plays that they did. I think they're up to, it's now 20 years since when they started.
Are there songs in the play also? Are there songs as a part of it?
So songs are part of the shows. However, it is very tricky because some people love it, some people hate it, and it kind of became the restroom break for many. So whenever a song starts, you will see people from the crowd getting up. So every production now is trying to either eliminate the songs or do it very creatively. So they would do it not just one person, one actor getting up and singing a song. They would do it like all choir or a musical piece or really interactive and getting the crowd maybe involved in the singing or something like that. What we have done on our end is the epic production team. We did a song that was more like an uplifting song, more like a song that people would enjoy and not want to leave. In the Yiddish King's Yiddish Plays company, we have abolished songs completely by this last play. However, we did do the introduction to the play and the conclusion of the play in a song, and we did a comical song in the middle, which is like a fun comical song where like two guys are like fighting about something, whatever it is, and they're fighting within a song. So everybody's trying to like come up with their own thing. And if your question is going to be if I sing any songs, the answer is absolutely not.
I figured not, because I've never seen you sing in anything, and I've watched a lot of things you were in.
Yeah, I sing.
But there is in the plays also built-in comic bits. Like it's like a chunk of comedy. It's not so interwoven. It's like these funny characters come on the stage and do a comedy bit, right?
So,
and you're often a part of that.
So yes and no. So meaning there are shows where they do a chunk of comedy for like 15, 20 minutes, a half hour.
I mean, more like 3-4 minutes.
Yeah, so then they have like these little bits, or they would do like a certain character that is like a comical character that would constantly come in and give some comic relief. So it depends on the show. To be very honest, I myself, even though people look at me as comical, I hate doing comedy.
Really? Why do people look at you as comical?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I do have comedy things out there. I do have comedy bits out there, and I was involved in comedy pieces over the years. So I guess it kind of like automatically relates to that. But I personally, I enjoy drama over comedy anytime.
I'm asking because I've seen you in the Teflikte Tzitzis, meaning the yellow garb, the hat.
Right. It's funny. I've been doing this Tzitzis for so many years now. It was kind of a character that I played on Purim and Minkach for years.
And speaking of this character, you also look very different because we discussed this before the interview. You lost a lot of weight.
The last show that I did, so the last play that I did, until now, I've lost close to 100 pounds.
Are you getting a ton of comments wherever you go about your change of appearance?
Yeah, so I spoke about it on Kamavasa. I gave 2 or 3 interviews about it.
So let's wrap up this interview. I learned so many fascinating things. Thank you for being so patient. I want to wrap up by telling the viewers what Kamavasa is. You've mentioned it early in the beginning of the interview and now again.
Okay, so Kamavasa is, the best way to explain it, is the kosher Yiddish radio. Not radio station, but radio. Meaning it's mainly on the phone, where you call in a number, and it's like a phone hotline. You call in the number, and there are so many things to listen to, whether it's news, current events, interviews, and interviews could be about current events, politics, or whatever it is. Interviews could be about certain events that are going on in the community. Endless content of Jewish kosher Yiddish entertainment. I myself have 2 buttons on that. One is what we call Chikavanize, which means
funny news.
Cute news. Let's say like a deer ran into a store, or the news that you're not gonna hear in the regular news outlet because it's not like real news, but it's cute, it's funny, and I usually try to add a little bit of humor to it, add some of my own spice to the piece of news that I'm giving over. So that's one thing that I have. And the other thing that I have is actually where I'm telling a story. And every story has 10 episodes. So it's almost like following a TV series, I would say. I mean, it's not really a TV series because each story is its own story. But it goes 10 episodes each story. Each episode, I would say, is approximately between 15 and 20 minutes probably. And every Sunday, the next episode goes up. So right now I'm up to towards the end of story number 15, which is
Wow.
150 episodes approximately.
What does it mean to have two buttons?
It means that I have two different things that I send in. It's very simple.
But you say buttons because people dial on the phone.
Yeah, because they dial it in, so I consider it buttons. But even if they go online, it's I don't know. I just for myself, I don't know if this is how people call it or this is how I named it. But yeah, I think it's the easiest way to refer to it is I have a button on Kamavasa. I think this is the terminology that's being used.
Do you get to know how many views you get or how many listens you get?
I don't, because it's not something really that is being shared. The only time that I actually asked him for a number is because someone that wanted to advertise on my thing, meaning like I should mention their company.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, they just wanted to get a rough number of, what kind of number we're talking about, and based on that be able to charge for the ad. So that's the only time when we discuss numbers, but otherwise the numbers he keeps very to himself, and rightfully so. I mean, but we are talking about worldwide. It's this is not just the tri-state area. This is probably the biggest thing that ever happened in the Yiddish speaking community.
It's massive, and everyone's walking around on their phones listening to Kamraze.
Yeah, I mean, I was just in Israel about 7 weeks ago. I was in Israel, and I was by Kever Achel, which is the tomb of Rachel, and this Israeli guy comes over to me. He looks like very, very, very ultra Hasidic. Like you can see that it's like the real deal. And he comes over to me and is like, "Are you Ari Abramowitz?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I just want to thank you. You saved me from what he called Shmiras Hanayim, which means guarding his eyes, not to look where he's not supposed to look." And I'm looking at him like, where exactly do you want to look and how am I of any help? So what are we discussing here? So he tells me, look, when you walk in the street, there's all, there are all types of posters hanging, there's all types of advertisement, and you're passing all types of people. And I don't want to look around, and, I want to guard my eyes and I want to keep myself holy. And it's very difficult sometimes. He says, from when, the past couple of years, you have your stories and your things, I put in my earphones and I just listen to your stories, and you kind of take me, I'm so focused on your story when I'm walking on the street that I don't look around. And if I do look, I don't even notice anything because I'm so into the story. So you get comments like that, and then you get comments of people that tell me that they've missed exits off the highway because of me, where they've listened to the story and they were so into it that they kind of, I mean, if you listen to the story, you'll see that it's very monotoned. It's very, I go very straightforward. I don't start yelling and screaming in the middle. I don't become all emotional. I go very straightforward. So when a person listens to them, they literally just start, floating along with the story.
Mm-hmm. It's almost hypnotic, which you, by the way, also do a little bit.
Yeah, I do hypnosis as well. It's one of the fun projects that I like doing.
You do a lot of things. We discussed you even are a little handy before when we were setting up the interview.
Yeah, I try. There's a show that I recently started called Ari and Friends. I don't know if you got to see the ad for it or not, but if not, I'll send it in. Ari and Friends is basically, imagine a night show, where they bring on guests and talk and play games or whatever it is. But it is geared for children, for families to sit and enjoy together. So the first episode I had, which we just released, we had two entertainers, which one of them is a very famous magician, juggler. He does like a very fun show, a good friend of mine, Nussi Friedman. And then I had a different entertainer, someone that does hypnosis. And we did a whole show, and we went afterwards to a donut factory where we did a bunch of games over there that we races between us and whatever it is, how to make the donuts and how to this and how that. So it's like a fun show that we're working on currently. And I'm really hoping, this literally started boiling up in the past, I would say, 2 days, but it seems like it's going to become a reality, which is I will be going around to various stores, businesses, and kind of show what they do, interview the boss, interview maybe one of the employees or whatever it is, like, and really promote it in an interesting way. So that's another venture that we're driving off
In the works.
onto right now.
This in particular, doing videos of people's businesses in the community, which, by the way, I'm also very interested. So when you go and you get access, you can say Frida Weisel also wants to do a video about your business for her audience. Thank you. But also it has opened a whole new niche, which is social media creators, people who make social media videos about businesses in the community, parts of the community, but for the community. Whereas my videos are for a wider audience outside of the community. They're making it for people in the community who are interested. They want to know what's going on in the community. And that's another part of our whole entertainment scene evolving that's really interesting.
You have to look at it this way. When it comes to the Jewish world, we don't have advertisements like Coke and Nike. And within the community, most billboards will not be about the big worldwide companies. So advertising by us is a huge market, because we create not only the advertisement, but we create the platform as well. So you have newspapers and you have magazines, and it's all for the community, by the community. So automatically we have this opportunity, and we try to, so a person like myself, I'm going to try to, cash out on it or optimize on it as much as possible, because this is right down my alley. And if I can provide the service in a quality way, I'm going to jump on it.
Yeah, I hear you. I would also like to jump on it. Maybe one day I'll be able to jump on it as well. Well, I'm going to be linking in the video description so many things that you mentioned, the projects that you're working on, and if your new series will be out, I'll link that as well. I learned so much from you. I had such a nice time talking to you. Thank you so much for the time, especially now with your newborn little baby. I'm sure you have your hands full, and I wish you so much luck with all the projects. Maybe we can check back in the future and see how things have changed.
It would be amazing. And I just want to say, I know your audience is a very wide audience. I would imagine a very broad, wide audience. And I really enjoyed the positivity that's going on your channel, especially talking about the Hasidic community. And which is why I came on and we did this interview, because it's important for people outside of the community as well to kind of learn what's going on within the community, and I just felt like for them to find out and to hear about the entire entertainment industry that's going on, and we literally have plays and movies and audio and whatever it is, and it's huge. It's a huge industry for our community. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I say that back in days, if I wanted to make someone smile, I had to go down to the person's house or hospital bed or whatever it was, perform for 5 minutes when the person smiled, and then I left and it was over. And today's days, I get to record it once, and it's for a lifetime. It's out there and makes people smile and happy. And to give people entertainment is the most beautiful thing in the world. So thank you for letting me share my experience.
Thank you. I have to tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've heard from so many people over the years who are so appreciative of what I do, who so like what I do, and yet it's been difficult to get men to make this cross. Although I have had Hasidic men, I've had Eli Spitzer, I've had Hasidic men, but I think I've had women, of course, who are performers in the community, like Razy Fried. Everyone I feel like who comes on maybe makes a little bit of a step by being willing to share, because my audience is outward facing. But it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me that you were willing to do this, and you got to teach me, because all of these things you're talking about, the advertising market, all these things, I have an interest academically, like I have an interest in understanding and documenting, and you made me smile. It was a
I
mitzvah
can
on
tell
your
you
part.
that much. We covered, I think, maybe the tip of the iceberg.
I know.
Is
Well,
sure.
there's more to come. Well, I'll let you go. Thank you so much, and also thank you to the viewers on YouTube and the podcast listeners as well. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.